Good evening, my friends. This is Paul, and before we begin, I just want to thank every single one of you who actually takes the time to watch one of my list videos on YouTube. I absolutely love making top 10s and top 50s. Lately, I haven't had too much time and space to do top 100s, but I probably would if it were still the old days of Facebook, where I could make Facebook notes. One thing that's been really exciting lately is being able to make lists of the best video games that I've reviewed. Between the years of 2018 and 2021, I was able to make a list of the best of the best. However, you may have noticed that for some bizarre reason or another, honestly even I don't know, I skipped out on making a best of the best list in 2016 and 2017, despite that I had been reviewing video games at that time in my channel's history. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to fix that right now, especially because my birthday is in 2 days, and who doesn't like celebrating gifts on their own birthday? So the rules of thumb are going to be really simple compared to most people's lists. I'm going to be choosing 5 games I reviewed in 2016 and 5 games in 2017, and I'm going to rank the top 5 of both of those years. In addition to that, the criteria for how a game makes the list is if I reviewed it and it released in North America in that year. So it could be a port, it could be a new game, whatever. As long as I reviewed it and it came out that year, it counts. So without further ado, I hope you'll enjoy this retroactive list of the best games that I reviewed in 2016 and 2017. Kicking off the 2016 list, number 5 is Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE for the Wii U. Yes, that's right, Nintendo fans got not 1, but 2 Fire Emblem games in 2016, and spoiler alert, they're both on this list. Unfortunately, Tokyo Mirage Sessions is also a crossover with Shin Megami Tensei, which has way more representation than Fire Emblem here. However, looking aside the fact that I got it for the Fire Emblem, which accounted for maybe 20% of the actual game, this is still a really good battle system that reminded me a lot of Paper Mario 2, shockingly enough. You have to take into account each enemy's weakness, but each enemy also has different strengths where they can parry your attacks. Conversely, you and your party members also have strengths and weaknesses for what attacks can hit you. So it's this constant feedback loop of learning what attacks are strong against what enemies and having the right party members to combat the various enemies that take place. And if enough people chain together enemy weaknesses, it can trigger what's called a session, which is basically just the characters attacking one after another in flashy animations that almost never got old. The Wii U version actually did a really interesting thing with the gamepad, where the characters would talk to each other with their cell phones, otherwise known as topics in this universe, and you'd see their messages on the gamepad while you'd be able to keep watching it on the big screen. You'd also see the maps of the dungeons on the gamepad so that you didn't have to keep pausing the game every time you wanted to look at the environment. Eventually this got a remaster on Switch that significantly cut down on the loading times, added a new dungeon and a couple of new songs and costumes, but overall managed to maintain pretty much everything that made the original great. So if you don't have a Switch, usually Tokyo Mirage Sessions on the original hardware is relatively cheap. I got it for about $20 used, and I think that is a perfectly reasonable price for a game that supposedly has really high production values for its songs. I'm not a big fan of Japanese singing, so that was a big turnoff for me, but the fun gameplay and engaging animations were what kept me going all the way until the end, even if not a single word of English dialogue was spoken. At number 4 on my best games of 2016 is The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD for the Wii U. I'm not going to mince my words. This was kind of a disappointing remaster. When I first heard that Twilight Princess was coming to the Wii U in HD, what immediately jumped to my mind was that Wii U tech demo in 2012 that showed what the Wii U could do, and I thought, oh my gosh, is that how one of the boss battles is going to turn out now? Are we going to be able to see more of Link's reflection on the floor and him wiping sweat off his brow? Yeah, no, we got none of that. It basically just made the texture slightly less blurry, and the picture quality was overall a lot shinier. So, at the end of the day, it was basically just a GameCube game with some quality of life improvements. And it also boasted a new dungeon that was locked behind an amiibo. Yeah, Nintendo still didn't learn from that in their most recent Zelda HD game. Like, seriously, Nintendo, what is with you and locking content behind amiibos in Zelda games? However, if you've never played Twilight Princess, this is a really good way to do it, as having the items on the gamepad feels like a very natural way of progressing through the game, as now you don't have to keep stopping in the middle of the action to swap out your items. I also really like how they improved the camera controls and slightly improved the horseback riding controls, although they can still be a bit finicky if you're used to how they were on the GameCube. And it also has an additional difficulty mode, so if you thought that the GameCube version was too easy, then you can invert the world to look reversed like it was on the Wii. Okay, that part was questionable. But even if you don't have that, then you have the Ganondorf amiibo, which was also questionable. So I find it kind of funny that I have this game on the list at all when I have so many things to complain about it. But if you take it as this is my first time playing Twilight Princess, as opposed to this is what I wanted to be better if I played it back in the day, then you're gonna love it. You're gonna probably think that the graphics are what Zelda games should look like nowadays, but Nintendo just won't, and instead they insist on using those cartoony graphics. And you'll find that Twilight Princess has a lot of really cool moments that let Link feel like a superhero, and most of them I'm not going to spoil because the opening in the game is painfully slow. But once you get past that everyday village life that Link starts out as, you're in for one of the most epic Zelda games ever. It's just a shame they really couldn't get new orchestral recordings for the songs. Even Wind Waker remastered the music. Okay, enough complaining about the game as a remaster treatment. Let's get on to the next entry. At number 3 on my 2016 list is Fire Emblem Fates for the 3DS. Have you ever thought to yourself, man, if I want to make a different choice in a video game, then I want to buy a whole different game to be able to make that choice? If that were to take place with Virtue's Last Reward, there would be 28 different versions of that game. Do you realize how stupid of a decision that would be? Yeah, Nintendo didn't realize that was stupid, because that's exactly what they did with Fire Emblem Fates, forcing most of the Fire Emblem fanbase to choose between Fire Emblem Fates Birthright or Fire Emblem Fates Conquest, and then additionally download a third path as DLC. Weird purchasing structuring aside, Fire Emblem Fates managed to be a controversial game in terms of its content, but in terms of its gameplay it was pretty solid. So rather than focusing on how much they over-glorified being overly sexual and had a lot of really cheesy writing, I'd like to focus instead on what Fates did right in the gameplay department. It was basically Fire Emblem Awakening, but learning from that experience, such as improving the partner system so that it's not only more balanced, but now the enemies have a chance to use it, so you have to think more carefully about the placement of all of the units on the whole board instead of just your own. You also had Dragon Veins, which allowed certain characters to change up the environment in unique ways, and especially in Revelation, you could really get some interesting maps to fight on. The animations were generally a lot better than Fire Emblem Awakening was, and there were even some unique animations depending on what was going on. Like some characters would even have a finishing blow that they would do. And even though today it looks really rocky and ugly, for its time it was a very beautiful 3DS game. And one thing that was especially impressive was you were able to build your own castle and wander around in it in 2D. This isn't Three Houses, but you could still like zoom in and look around at everything while you were standing still, and it would even reflect in the scenery whenever you would have a battle at that castle. So it offered a degree of flexibility that hadn't been seen up to that point, and to a certain degree still hasn't been seen in Fire Emblem. And I think if it weren't for the fact that the game were segmented and Conquest and Birthright feel so ridiculously different from each other that they might as well have been separate games. Oh wait, they were. And the writing and the sexuality was just so cheesy. Fire Emblem Fates is a remarkable step forward from Awakening, and managed to show that even on the same hardware, the team could still have amazing ideas and still take the Majora's Mask approach of, we'll optimize the same software to continue getting better in unique ways. And so for that, I think Fates is worth a look. It probably hasn't aged very well today, and good luck finding that special edition. And even better luck trying to even play Revelation, because the 3DS eShop will be closing down, but if you manage to hurry up and scramble and get all 3 games, then, well, you're in for an interesting time, albeit it could have been a better Fire Emblem game, but hey, there are only so many games I could choose from in 2016. Times have changed.
Objection!
Number 2 for 2016 was Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney Spirit of Justice. Yet another game that I highly recommend you guys go out and buy as soon as possible before the 3DS eShop closes down, because here in North America, Spirit of Justice never got a physical release, so unless you get the iPhone version, then you're never going to be able to experience this game on its original hardware ever again, unless, I don't know, you hack or something, which people have apparently done with the Wii. This was more or less Dual Destinies 2 mechanically, as it didn't really introduce a whole lot of new features to Ace Attorney, but rather it continued the narrative that was kind of forced by Apollo Justice's first entry, but then refined the story and the characters so that they had considerably more depth than they had in their original outing, with Trucy actually showing way more emotions than just overt amounts of optimism. Apollo Justice being such an amazing character that he's almost unrecognizable, and just providing more of the same. And the new ability to do a divination seance. I know it sounds really creepy from a Catholic standpoint, but trust me, it works for some really cool gameplay possibilities, where you can actually see things playing out in a 3D video, and point contradictions in what you smell and what you see, and really engaging yourself in using the 5 senses. Plus, there's the fact that you have the I am in another world setting that Professor Layton versus Phoenix Wright loved to do so much, and really making you feel like you're a fish out of water despite Phoenix Wright being such a legendary attorney. It has its stumbling blocks in terms of its gameplay mechanics not evolving very much from the previous entries, and Athena Sykes feels like a very underdeveloped character, especially considering how major of a role she had in Dual Destinies. But as a continuation of the franchise, it overall managed to provide a really good experience. Oh, and did I mention that Maya comes back? Finally! At number 1 on my 2016 list, we have Zero Time Dilemma for the 3DS. Yes, I know Miss Peggle is streaming the Zero Escape series, and she just started 999 2 days ago, as of the time of this recording, so I'm going to try to be as vague and mysterious as possible, so that she can go into these games knowing absolutely nothing. Basically, Zero Time Dilemma, being the 3rd game in the Zero Escape series, had a lot of high expectations from fans, so much so that its entire existence was thanks to Americans, for one, supporting the series so much financially, and 2, creating a petition called Operation Bluebird that prompted Spike Chunsoft to continue the series instead of just leaving off with Virtue's Extra Ward. I think fans are divided onto how well a lot of those promises were kept, but in my personal opinion, I was very glad to see the payoff of the series, and in terms of the gameplay, it's my favorite Zero Escape game yet, because it allows for a lot more freedom than what you could accomplish in the previous games, and it feels like your decisions have more consequences than ever. Now, I am a little bit miffed that the escape room sections don't have an easy mode like they did in Virtue's Extra Ward, so that might make it a bit of a pain for longtime players who tend to just over-rely on the character hints to get through the puzzles. But if any of you listening to this are having trouble with the puzzle rooms, you can always just ask me, and I'll send you a walkthrough of the puzzle rooms free of charge. And I also wrote a novelization of this game, although I highly recommend that you've played the other games first before you do it. Overall, Zero Time Dilemma is a wonderful finale to the Zero Escape series. It may not be perfect, but it provides to be a fascinating entry in the most amazing trilogy of games I've ever played. And I can't think of any other game that would even come close to being on top of the 2016 list. But the video's not over yet. Let's see what the massive year that was 2017 had to offer. Number 5 on my 2017 list is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. This was a little bit of a slap in the face for me personally when this game was announced, as it's a port of a Wii U game that I adored and bought all of the DLC for, and even unlocked all of the Mii costumes with my various amiibos. And so I had so much fun seeing the very first Mario Kart in HD and just being blown away by the graphical presentation. Like, this is probably the best looking game Nintendo has ever made. And it seems like they're not even trying to compete with this anymore with their more recent cartoony entries. Now, if it just stopped there, I would say this is a pretty okay port. Like, it has all of the DLC included, and they fixed the battle mode, but otherwise it's still Mario Kart 8. But as of 2022, now they're finally introducing new, old, tracks as part of the Switch Online expansion, or just $25 for 48 tracks. So, regardless of what you think about the tracks themselves, $25 for 48 tracks is actually a really good price. But even if you don't want to pay for those new, remastered, old tracks, the base game of Mario Kart 8 still has fantastic course design. The anti-gravity mechanics really allow for creativity the likes of which I haven't seen since Super Mario Galaxy. And the music is all big band style, so pretty much every track has not only a new tune, but it's also like fully done with full instruments. And even the retro tracks have a fantastic layer of polish to make them almost unrecognizable from their original counterparts. If you can look past the kind of boring lack of things to do in single player and have a working online connection, then get it on the Wii U. But if the Wii U's online servers go down, then Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is still a fantastic package that will still give you a decent challenge if you want to unlock Gold Mario. So I hope that those of you who have me on their Switch friend list will come and join me in a match sometime. I promise that I'm pretty mixed when it comes to my experience, so you may actually have a chance of winning. Number 4 for 2017 is Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle, the crossover that I did not expect to like. I don't really like the Rabbids at all. Admittedly, I haven't really played any of their other games, but the little bit that I could tell, they seem like they're basically just the minions before the minions, and they're incredibly annoying and like a lot of toilet humor. But then, someone said the magic words, Grant Kirkhope composed the soundtrack. And of course, most of you that know me really well know that I love Banjo-Kazooie, and Grant Kirkhope composed the soundtrack for that, Banjo-Tooie, Donkey Kong 64, and he eventually went to work on the Spiral Mountain remix in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. So, if only for the music alone, I had to try it. And then I ended up actually liking it, which really shocked me, because the Rabbids started out as just a minigame collection on the Wii. But this game is a tactical RPG that has a growth system, an opera piece, lots of live orchestrations, and the enemies actually have really good AI. So it's kind of like playing Fire Emblem, but also kind of not, because I've heard it's more akin to how the XCOM series plays. I haven't played that series yet, but I'm very thankful it's on Switch if I ever can't get enough Fire Emblem love. And in a year where Fire Emblem was kinda... Like, Fire Emblem Echoes was great, but it was also extremely grindy. It was nice to have a turn-based strategy game that was more newbie friendly, but also like gradually got more difficult, so that once you got used to it, you could feel like you were playing a proper difficult Fire Emblem. And then in 2018 they had DLC that had a whole new campaign featuring Donkey Kong, and Grant Kirkhope, the man, the myth, the legend, returned to recompose his own Donkey Kong Island theme from Donkey Kong 64. So guys, come on, support the man if you won't do anything else. Number 3 for 2017 is Sonic Mania. My gosh, Nintendo could learn a thing from Sega. They were so impressed by a fan hack of one of the old Sonic games. I think it was either Sonic 2 or Sonic CD. And they said, can you use your talents to make a brand new Sonic game that we will publish for you? And they went ahead and made the best reviewed Sonic game in decades. And to this day, it's still my favorite Sonic game. And nothing has even come close to replicating that feeling of amazing nostalgia to see a new game in the style of the old games, while at the same time incorporating a handful of modern touches, but not so many that it feels like it's alienating fans of the original Sega Genesis masterpieces. The Encore DLC added 2 more playable characters, which added a little bit more variety, and it gave you a chance to play through the game again with slightly altered level design, and to see Angel Island Zone again, which for some odd reason hadn't been reused ever since it was introduced in Sonic 3. Overall, Sonic Mania is a tightly controlled platformer that brings the best out of the Genesis era, but also refines it with the type of expertise that's typically only known from die-hard hackers, and it goes to show you that unofficial people can make a better Sonic game than Sonic Team. Sonic Frontiers, you've got some heavy competition coming up. Number 2 is Super Mario Odyssey. Is it any wonder that the Switch is dominating 2017? And not just the Switch, but like Mario games, because this is the 3rd Mario game on this list from 2017 alone. Super Mario Odyssey is basically everything I ever wanted from a proper Super Mario 64 follow-up. It still has semi-open levels to explore, but instead of forcing you to be booted out of the level every single time, once you get a power moon, you're allowed to stay in the level and keep exploring. Sometimes the levels evolve over time based on if you complete the story missions, but for the most part, you don't really have to follow the story too much. There have even been times where I accidentally skipped a crucial boss battle in the storyline, and only when I went back was I like, oh, shoot, I've totally forgot about the story. So Super Mario Odyssey gives a tremendous amount of freedom in how you want to approach it. Not only that, but Mario has never controlled better. Nintendo just really knows how to master the art of movement and making it fun. Not to mention, Super Mario Odyssey is one of the most detail-oriented Mario games ever, with so many blades of grass, and Mario adjusting his footsteps depending on the terrain, and the screen getting soaking wet when a waterfall is nearby, and all of these little things really add up to make this feel like a next-generation Mario game. And sometimes it deliberately doesn't have a lot of attention to detail for an artistic choice. And how can we forget the epic showcase of nostalgia that is New Donk City? Like, my gosh, if you weren't sold on the fact that this was a celebration of Mario games yet, just wait until you get to the Metro Kingdom, where everything just dials up a notch. Couple that with a fantastic post-game that brings back amazing memories from Super Mario 64. And I haven't even talked about the captures yet. Like, my gosh, I thought that was so stupid when Mario would throw his hat on something to possess it, but it ended up making the gameplay feel really fun and varied, and it also gave new life to things that we thought we'd seen over and over again. Like, you thought a bullet bill has done everything it could in 3D space. Well, have you ever tried controlling a bullet bill in 3D space? And so I just really hope that games in the future will continue building off of Super Mario Odyssey's level design, and we can truly see how Mario is going forward in this more sandbox style of games. As great as the Switch was in 2017, the Wii U still managed to pull out on top with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. What a showstopper for Nintendo's second least successful video game console. Breath of the Wild is so spectacular that I don't even really know how to summarize this in a decent manner that won't involve me rambling and going on and fanboying, which I'm kind of doing right now, as a matter of fact. Basically, I've always really loved exploration and going hiking and wandering around trying to discover something new and exciting, and Breath of the Wild recaptures that feeling perfectly. It introduces so many systems and things to think about and do that you're constantly, well, at least for me, like when I'm watching someone else play, I'm like constantly twitching my hand like I'm Hermione trying to answer a question in Harry Potter saying, "Oh, did you know that you can do this? And did you know that you can do this?" And then that said person tries to experiment in his or her own way and ends up creating a solution that I didn't even think was possible, which speaks volumes to how the physics engine in Breath of the Wild just magnificently captures, again, that art of movement and attention to detail that Nintendo games are really good at. Now, I'm not going to pretend that Breath of the Wild is oozing with perfection and it can never be topped. I definitely think the story was slightly weak, and I also think that there wasn't a whole lot of scripted events. I mean, I'm personally not too bummed about that. I know a lot of people wanted more traditional Zelda dungeons, but I was totally fine with how they were handled, although from what I've heard, I'm the only one. But apart from that, Breath of the Wild is a blast to explore. It's so much fun to play, and I'm really impressed that all of that could be running on the Wii U, and even the original complaints from the critics about the frame rate has been alleviated with patches since then. So now the game runs practically flawless. And if that's still not enough for you, Nintendo released all of the game's DLC in 2017 as well, including an epic quest to get a motorcycle, which goes from the game being fun to move around to the game being phenomenal to move around in. So there's so much stuff to do, and I bet people will still continue discovering secrets in Breath of the Wild for years to come. GameSpot still is. Like, even in 2022, I bet they're still making videos called Things You Didn't Know About Breath of the Wild. So, thank you very much for watching my lists. Were there any that I left out? I only wanted to have 5 per list, so I'm sure there's a couple of other masterpieces I couldn't get around to. So, let me know down in the comments what your favorite games of 2016 and 17 were, as well as maybe other years where I didn't review video games. Like, what games did you like in the dud of a year that was 2015? Or, if you're an old schooler, was there a game better than Super Mario Bros. In 1985? Let me know down in the comments, and until the next time, keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye!